A lot of new faces have arrived at Barcelona.
Exclusive breaking news, Barcelona agree on deal to sign Rodri. Here we go. Anthony Gordon to Barcelona. Here we go. Deal done for the English. Exclusive breaking news, Karim Adeyemi to Barcelona is a here we go. João Cancelo to Barcelona. Here we go. Deal done for the return.
But some big names have also left.
Also the fans, they left a banner, a board here saying, Robert, with you, everything started.
Deco has been cooking. He's given Flick the players that he wanted. So is this the side that finally gets their hands on the Champions League title? Or are we just overhyping a mid-Barca team? Early into the transfer window, I made a video about Barca where I started off by saying I have very mixed opinions about this team. Well, my opinions started to shift when Barca signed Rodri. That's always going to happen when a team goes out and signs the best player in a specific position. And that's what Rodri has been. He's been by far and away the best lone pivot, the best center defensive midfielder in the past 3 years, at least ever since the 2022-2023 season. The only years in that time period where he wasn't the best was when he was injured. Because as we saw at the 2026 World Cup, when he's healthy, nobody comes near the levels that this guy plays at.
Rodri, best player at the tournament, Adidas Golden Ball.
The signing was also beneficial in two ways. Number one, it strengthened Barcelona, but number two, at the same time, it weakened Real Madrid. Because all summer, the reports were suggesting that Rodri was going to go there. He wanted to return to Spain, and they seemed like a perfect fit because he was the exact profile they were missing. Well, now he ended up joining Barca, and he's elevating them to another level.
It's thought that Barcelona have got a degree of confidence that he might choose Barcelona over Real Madrid.
Because yes, Barca's midfield was already stacked. It was probably the one area of the team that had a lot of quality and depth, but you never say no to a player as good as this guy. Plus, the whole move to Real Madrid kind of didn't make sense to me. Why would he join the locker room of a guy like Vini and a club like Real Madrid who all mocked him when he won the Ballon d'Or? I feel like it would have just been awkward. Just like the fact that Real Madrid needed a profile like Rodri, Barca also didn't have a profile like Rodri. They didn't have somebody that combines excellent defensive qualities with a fantastic ability on the ball. Because yes, they had players like Eric Garcia and Casado who are good defensively, they can win duels. But those guys are not comfortable on the ball. And then they have players like Frankie Ding Dong and Pedri who are very good on the ball, but they're not as good defensively as someone like Rodri. And actually, I'm going to pull up this report from Sky Sports. They looked at Rodri's stats per 90 and then ranked them out of 10. And as you can see, his highest rated abilities are exactly the things that Barca can benefit from. He's top when it comes to passes completed, both long and short, top when it comes to touches, but look at his duels. He's also top in aerial duels won and defensive actions. This is a guy who is an anchor in the middle of the park, and I mean that in a good way. I'm not saying he slows the game down. I'm saying everything in the middle, he just gobbles up. He's like a fat kid when you give him cake. He can offer a layer of protection that Pedri and Frankie de Jong just don't give. So good defensively, knows where to position himself, much stronger than these guys. As you can see from the stats, he's much better in the air. And this is also huge because Frankie de Jong is not even going to be available till like the second half of the season. And that's assuming that when he comes back, he hits the ground running. Now, I hope it goes without saying, even if he was fit, Rodri would start because he's a better player than Frankie de Jong. But I'm just saying, if people were concerned about the depth and how many midfielders Barca already have, they don't have a guy like Rodri. And the other great thing about Rodri is that he gets goals in the biggest moments. I know at the World Cup he had 0 goals and 0 assists, but Spain in general didn't score that much. At Manchester City, he was always popping up with big goals. In the 2022-2023 season, he scored some of the most important goals in City's entire history. He had that absolute banger against Bayern. And then, of course, he has the one and only goal in the Champions League final that helped Manchester City become European champions for the first time ever.
Rodri!
I think there was a stat that at one point when he was playing for City, they won like 75 games unbeaten. He was central to everything they did. Yes, the highlights went to Erling Haaland, and Kevin De Bruyne, and then later Phil Foden even in the 2024 season. But what Rodri offers is just insane. He's like a mixture between a number 8 and a number 6. And his presence should improve Pedri even more. We should see his goals and assist stats go through the roof because now he has the freedom to get forward. He also doesn't need to drop deep to get the ball because Rodri can break lines on his own. Add in the fact that Rodri already knows pretty much 90% of the guys in that locker room from the national team, and it's just a great signing. It came out of nowhere, but it's really elevated the floor of this Barca team because even without a striker, you now have a midfield where nobody can touch the ball. Then you have Rodri's former teammate at Manchester City, João Cancelo. Now this guy, we already know his glaring weaknesses. He always has been and will continue to be a defensive liability. You can't teach old dogs new tricks, and we even saw during his, what I would call a very successful loan stint, that he's gonna forget people at the back post. That's just what's gonna happen. The good thing is, going forward, he's a killer.
Here's João Cancelo trying to inject something. Oh! There's the inspiration. Barca have liftoff.
And the most interesting part about him is that he loves to play for Barca. I'm going to get back to his attacking qualities, but what I want to mention is this guy, he bleeds for the badge. He's the only player to come to Barca on 3 separate occasions. He came in the 2023-2024 season, then he came on loan in the 2025-2026 season, and now he's back again. He loves the club. You could see it from his interviews. He took a pay cut from Al Hilal to make this move happen. He had even told Deco that he was willing to basically play 1 year just to see out his contract and wait for Barca. So considering the circumstances that Ferran Torres left in and the whole nonsense that happened with Nico Williams in the previous summer, it's a good reminder that there are many players who would die to play for Barcelona, and João Cancelo is one of them. Like I said, defensively we already know his weaknesses, and I think even Flick knows it, but his strengths are too good to ignore. Whether he's playing at right back or left back, this is a winger in the position of a fullback. How smooth he is on the ball, his ability to cross, his ability to create opportunities. Nothing about him screams fullback. And Barca desperately needed this guy, even if he is at times a defensive liability, because Jules Koundé cannot do what João Cancelo does going forward. Neither can Alejandro Balde. Neither can Eric Garcia. Eric Garcia, a very solid player, but at the end of the day, this guy is still a defensive player. Cancelo can glide with the ball. He has the capability to make these Trivela passes. He's perfect against those Haram low blocks. He doesn't need a ton of space to do damage. Although even in transitions, this guy's lethal. He's a profile that was desperately needed. And again, I thought he did very well during his loan stint. I was a big fan of him, and when he made the move, I made a video right away talking about how he can absolutely crush it because he's just a Barca player at heart. The technical quality, how good he is in tight spaces. A lot of people were against the signing because of his previous attitude problems and the defensive issues, but if there's one guy that can get the best out of any player, it's Hansi Flick. The other player that Hansi Flick knows a lot about and knows how to use his strengths is Karim Adeyemi. After all, it was Flick that gave Adeyemi his debut for the German national team. Adeyemi's strengths are obvious. It's the pace and power that he plays with.
Nicht den Weg zum Mitspieler findet. Stattdessen der Konter der Katalan. Und wir sehen, wie schnell dieser Adeyemi ist.
This guy is rapid. We already know he's going to destroy teams in transitions. There was even glimpses of it during the preseason for Barca. Obviously, there's naturally questions and concerns about how this guy's going to play against those low and mid blocks. It's very different playing on the counter for Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga than it is to be a Barcelona attacker. Literally every team parks the bus against Barca. Every team. Even Real Madrid, the giants of European football, they sit in a mid-block when they play Barca. So we'll see how Adeyemi adapts, but my god, this guy's rapid. And Barca need more runners like that. Him driving through the left wing and Yamal picking him up, Pedri picking up some passes to him, Olmo finding him in between the lines. He's going to destroy some teams. And when you look at his Borussia Dortmund career, he loved scoring these big goals in the Champions League. Again, because in the Champions League, there's more space. And when there's space, this guy's just too quick to try and handle. The other thing that I think Flick likes about him and Barca like about him is his versatility. If you actually look at the minutes that he's played in different positions, you realize he's played everywhere in the attack. He's played on the left, he's played on the right, he's played through the middle. And this is very important because Barca need quality and depth. With Rooney Bargaji tearing his ACL, on top of the fact that he was going to get loaned out anyways, Yamal needs a backup again. Adeyemi can do that. He can play on the right, cut inside on his left foot. He can also play on the left. Let's say Rafinha is injured or Flick wants to rest him and he wants to move Anthony Gordon to play as the striker, then Adeyemi can go on the left. So that versatility is very important. He's not coming in to be a star for this team. You can even tell that from the transfer fee. He's come in to be a reliable rotation option so that Barca can actually rest players and not see a drop off in quality. Because obviously every team needs depth, but I would say Barca are one of those clubs where the difference between the starting 11 and the next guy up is massive. And I think Deco and Flick and Barca as a whole are trying to avoid that by bringing in guys like Adeyemi, somebody who was a star at Dortmund. I know he didn't really fulfill his potential, but he was one of the bigger names there. He's somebody who maybe when he's starting, the club isn't at their best, which is probably why he was being used as a super sub at Dortmund as well. But off the bench, I mean, there's not many better players. And Flick already knows him as a player, so he's going to know his weaknesses, his strengths, and where to use him. And then you get to Anthony Gordon. Now this signing, according to Rashad Rahman, who's a very reliable journalist around Barcelona, he was somebody that everybody basically gave the thumbs up to. Flick, Deco, Laporta, they all wanted him. And I believe these reports because the move happened so quickly. There was like a few hours of rumors and then boom, the here we go came out. So they clearly have a plan in place for him. Because I'll be honest with you guys, I was somebody who questioned the signing. If he goes on and has an amazing season in any Anthony Gordon video that I make, I'm going to raise my hand and say, hey, I doubted the signing. Because to me, forget the price. He just didn't seem like a Barcelona player. Both him and Adeyemi don't really seem like Barcelona players because Barca have always been about technical quality first. And these are two players who I would say whenever scouts or coaches talk about them, it's usually their pace and power and work rate that comes first. And again, these are great qualities and I think that's Barca adapting to the modern game. But still, it seemed weird to me, especially because, I'm used to watching Neymar on the left wing for Barca. Even Pedro was a much better player than Anthony Gordon. So it was just a surprising signing. That much money for a guy who didn't have an amazing output, who wasn't considered one of the best players in his position in the respective league. But like I said, Barca have a clear plan in place for him. And just like Adeyemi, one of his best traits is versatility. He can play on the left, but he can also easily play up front as the number 9. He actually played as a striker at the youth level for England, for the under-21s. I believe when England won the Euros for the under-21s, Gordon was the player of the tournament, and he was playing centrally. For Newcastle in the last season before he left for Barca, according to The Athletic, he had his best goal-scoring numbers per 90 playing centrally. That's where he was when he scored 4 goals against Karabakh. So he's comfortable playing there. In fact, he has a lot of the same traits that Ferran Torres had. He presses well, he loves making the blind run in behind the center backs, and he loves crashing the box. It's actually an area of his game that he developed under Eddie Howe at Newcastle.
So I'm thinking, I actually don't want it now. Get it to trips. I want to score. I don't want to be the one to, look good on the ball. I want numbers.
Because at Everton, he was more of a tricky winger. I'm going to put it in quotations because he's a good player, but he wasn't no Neymar or Lamine Yamal or anybody who's notoriously known for their dribbling. He was a very solid dribbler who was able to create chances. But at Newcastle, he turned into what you would expect from a modern winger. Less dribbling, more efficiency in front of goal, more runs without the ball, which again is perfect for Barca because that's exactly what they need on the left side. Somebody else that can run and Yamal can find him and Pedri can find him. But the main point is that he can't play up front. If worse comes to worse and Barca don't sign an elite number 9, he can play in that position and he's not going to look uncomfortable doing it. And also, what I always say about players joining Barcelona, ignore their numbers before that. Because Rashford's numbers weren't that great. He came to Barca and got inflated. Ferran Torres' numbers were not that great before Hansi Flick. When you play in this Hansi Flick chaotic system where a lot of chances are created, your numbers are just naturally going to go up. Because remember, Gordon's playing with better players now. At Newcastle, he had to rely on Joe Linton creating chances for him. Now he has Yamal, Pedri, Rafinha, Dani Olmo. It's going to be a different circumstance. And again, with Gordon, he's going to be a rotational option. The plan is that Rafinha starts on the left wing and then Yamal is on the right. Sure, Gordon can play up front, but the goal is that he's always alternating in. No one's relying on him to score 10-15 goals in his first season and carry this Barca team. Just work hard and press. And pressing, it's his best attribute. There was actually, again, another stat from Sky Sports that looked at the amount of distance he covered in the Champions League and compared it to Rafinha and Yamal and Lewandowski. And he was just behind Yamal and Rafinha. And keep in mind, he was eliminated a round earlier. So he's willing to work hard, work his socks off. And if you've actually watched any interviews of Anthony Gordon, he's very confident, but he's not arrogant. And that's very important because he's a student of the game. I think he's still raw enough and young enough. That sounds weird, but you guys know what I mean, where you can still gel him into what you want. Now again, he's not Rafinha because the quality that Rafinha showed at Leeds and in Liga before he came to Barca was that of a much better player technically than Anthony Gordon. but Flick knows what he's doing. And again, the one thing I always say, and I repeat it, you should have confidence in the signing because everybody wanted him really bad. This wasn't some panic signing. They had a plan for Gordon, they went for him, and they got him. And I think that's a very important thing to consistently mention. The big concern with Anthony Gordon is just how is he going to deal with the low and mid blocks. Similar to Adeyemi, this is a guy who thrives in transition. His best games did come against the bigger teams in the Premier League, which is great. It tells you about his mentality and how the bright lights don't scare him. But he also performed better in those games because Newcastle were playing on the counter. And he's of course much more lethal in transition than he is against a set back 4. Or in La Liga, a set back 11, plus the water boy, plus the assistant coach, plus the referee. It's going to take him some time to adjust because if you guys remember, even Kylian Mbappe, who is a superstar, struggled initially in its first few months in La Liga. It's just a different sport. You're not used to playing against teams that constantly park the bus. And especially for Gordon, who spent the last few seasons playing for a team that naturally plays on the counter. In fact, you guys know when Newcastle struggled? When they played against teams that let them have the ball. So I think that's going to take an adjustment period for Anthony Gordon, but the good thing is he did get some goals in the Champions League the season before, although 40% of the goals did come against Karabakh, but he had some really good performances. And many of those performances came from him playing centrally. So let's see how he does. I want to also give a quick shout out to our newest channel members. We have CadMD03, Javi Danotkan7898, Juicer on Skates, and Beast Pedro1. These guys now get access to dark web football on PedTalksFutbol.com, and they also get access to the Discord. When you guys become a member, please join the Discord right away, and the mods will help you integrate everything from YouTube to the website seamlessly. If you have any issues, they'll help you out. Back to the video. On top of the new arrivals, there were some big names leaving. First one is Ferran Torres. Now we can criticize this guy all we want, but if Barca don't bring in a high quality striker, he will be missed, even with his inconsistent finishing. Because like I said, even though he couldn't finish anything at times, and he would go on these goal droughts, you could still easily pencil him in for 10 to 15 goals. At least that's what he did last season. Just because of his movement, his work rate. Again, I think the club is hoping that Anthony Gordon can basically get those same numbers because he's a very similar player. But Ferran Torres was quite useful. Even in the season before that, he was a big reason why Barcelona won the Copa del Rey. So despite the fact that he left in a really bad way, I think it put a sour taste in everybody's mouth. To have the club that supported you all these years, this guy scored 1 goal in the World Cup final and basically forgot about how the club had supported him for the last few years. He said he wanted to feel loved, but really it was just him using the leverage that he finally had to, I guess, get a bigger contract. I don't know. I mean, he's going to be on the PSG bench. Meanwhile, for Barca, he was going to get a ton of playing time. At no point in the last few seasons, despite his inconsistent finishing, did Flick show a lack of trust in him. So I don't know what he saw at PSG. I don't know what he was thinking. But unless Barca signed Julian Alvarez, Ferran Torres was going to get lots of playing time. But either way, no matter how you feel about him or what you think of him, somebody is going to have to replace that output. So his departure definitely deserves a mention. Then there's Ronald Araujo. And of course, he had to go. I don't think that Flick system was ever going to be right for him. I'm shocked he went to Liverpool because Andoni Iraola also plays a very aggressive high line system. But this guy, between the injury history and the bozo moments, I think he had to go. But that means, again, Barca have to bring in a center back. When I made a video a few months ago, I felt like they needed to bring in a center back even if Araujo was still at the club. But now they definitely need more depth in that position because as good as Christensen is, I don't think you can fully rely on this guy to be fully healthy for an entire campaign. We know how good he can be when he's injury free, but he's also made of glass. And the funny part is, I saw a tweet the other day, and I'm gonna help my editor pull it up. Because yes, guys, we use real editors, not AI editors, as some people like to say. But there was a Barca fan that was saying, what if Araujo and Ferran Torres go to their new respective clubs and actually get better? This is 100% a possibility. We saw it with Ousmane Dembele. The guy went from being a good player under Xavi after years of inconsistency and injury to a Ballon d'Or winner. But rest assured, that was never going to happen at Barca. Both Araujo and Ferran Torres got more than enough opportunities to show their ability. They were both inconsistent. So even if they go on to have incredible careers post-Barca, it was never going to happen at Barca. Yes, people will mock and laugh at the club and say, oh my god, you guys trash talked a player who was actually really good. Sometimes players just need a change in environment. Now this team is still missing a striker. Because yes, they can play with Anthony Gordon up front and Hamza Abdelkarim, who I think is a very good prospect. I think he has all the tools needed to become a very good striker. But they need an elite number 9. But even without them, if everybody can stay healthy, Barca have a good team. You have Pau Cubarsí, who was the best young player at the World Cup. You have João Garcia, who's one of the best goalkeepers in the world. You have Lamine Yamal, who is once again going to be on the Ballon d'Or podium if he somehow doesn't win it. Easily the best player in the world on his day. You have Rafinha, who's turned into an absolute monster under Hansi Flick. You have the midfield that was already stacked, but now you add Rodri in. So you already had Pedri, who's a magician. You have Dani Olmo and Fermin Lopez, who have shown that both of them can impact the game in different ways. both of them can get goals and assists. You have Marc Bernal, who's a super exciting young player. You have Gerard Martin, who every single season has gotten better. So the Barca core itself is very good, and even without a striker, I think they're very dangerous. Their ceiling is determined by injuries, so health, their mentality, because that's basically the reason why they lost against Inter. They should have just kept the ball, but they kept attacking. And Hansi Flick's in-game management. Because the reality is this high line, this aggressive man-to-man press, this risky play style, it can be the end of them even if they end up getting a Julian Alvarez. Flick has to find that right balance between being pragmatic and playing the aggressive style that has allowed Barcelona to be so good in the past few seasons. Because that's really the key. Plus getting a striker and maybe another center back. But even with this team, with the addition of Rodri, and if everybody else can stay healthy, the ceiling is very high for this team. The question is, can they be healthy in the business end of the season? And can they figure out the right balance so that they're not getting torched every single weekend by the same goal being copy-pasted? If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will love this one too. Check it out right here.